Shooter attacked an elementary school in this country again, this time in Nashville. We are just learning the names and the ages of the 6 people who died. 3 little kids, all of them 9 years old. 3 adults have been killed, too. Their families, all of their families, living a god-awful nightmare, and so many others are devastated at how this could have happened again. You are looking live at the place where that news conference is just getting set up. We could hear from the police chief, from the district attorney, and we're getting some pictures from the scene that are just a gut punch, like this one, of kids walking to the bus, or here being led out by police. You see them holding hands as they're creating a chain to try to get to safety. There's this one, too, of a mom holding her little girl in pigtails in her arms, trying to comfort her. All of it bringing back terrible memories of the Sandy Hook and Uvalde attacks. Here's what we know in this instance. As we said, 3 kids, 3 adults who will not come home tonight. We've learned their names. All 9 years old, those 3 kids. Evelyn Deckhouse, Hallie Scruggs, William Kinney. Cynthia Peak was also killed. She was 61, along with Catherine Kuntz and Mike Hill, also 60 and 61 years old. We know the suspect had 2 assault rifles and a handgun, and we have some details on who she is, a 28-year-old woman who was killed by police at the scene. We've just found out her name. And look, it is very rare for women to be behind these kinds of shootings, and there's some early information to suggest she'd been a student years ago at this Christian elementary school. We've heard from the city's police chief already, overwhelmed by this scene. Listen.
I was literally moved to tears to see this and the kids as they were being ushered out of the building.
I want to bring in Steve Patterson and Ken Delaney, who are both joining us on this tonight. Steve, I'll start with you because literally in the last maybe 5-6 minutes, we have learned how old the littlest victims here were. They were all 9 years old, the 3 of them. It is horrific as these families now are in the world's most unimaginable pain. We've learned the names of the 3 adults as well. Walk us through who these victims are, what little we know about them so far, and where this goes next.
All we really know about the victims right now, Hallie, and they waited so long to release these names, obviously being as sensitive as possible to the community and especially to next of kin. All we really know is the age range, which is just this spectrum of sadness, ages 9 to 61 years old, the whole life between them, and now all extinguished. Sadness permeating throughout the community. You heard the police chief and his sadness, his reaction to seeing even the students that were okay just being let out of the facility. So much permeating through that community. Only the beginning as this investigation continues. You see this on screen: 6 victims fatally shot, and then their names and ages. Police, meanwhile, continuing this investigation. We're learning more about the suspected shooter, this 28-year-old woman, thought earlier initially to be of teenage age. We then learned that she is a little bit older, may have went to that school earlier on. Police looking into that. We know police were at her home earlier today, but we're also learning a whole lot more about the timeline of this shooting. We know that there was a 5-person officer team tasked with going into that school as shots were ringing out. And the word that we heard often was rapid, that this took place in a very quick manner. They got the call immediately. They went in immediately. They initiated contact with the shooter immediately. They took down the shooter immediately. And there, the timeline on your screen, 10:13, police received the call. Police chiefs say officers immediately respond to that gunfire. By 10:27, the shooter is down. So you're talking about a span of 14 minutes. That 5-person team, of that team, we heard that 2 officers took aim, fired, took down the shooter. And the rest is this investigation following up, including, as we know, there is video evidence that police will dig into alongside any information they can get on the suspected shooter. Hallie.
You mentioned, Steve, that NBC News has learned the name of the suspect in this case, the woman who's been killed.
28-year-old Audrey Hale. I wanted to wait on saying that because we should only say it a few times. As we often know, they will dig in and learn more about the connection. I think that's what sort of will center this investigation for the coming days and weeks and months as they try to learn why in the world this person would do this. Beyond that, all we know is that she's from Nashville and that police have a beat on her background, and that as they continue to dig through, maybe in this press conference, we'll certainly learn more about her connection to the school that may be beyond just that she just went there for whenever she was there. Hallie.
Part of what is so difficult here, Steve, is the facts of the matter that we have at hand here as we look at some of these images, right? The gut-wrenching photos. You shouldn't have to see kids leaving a school, obviously, holding hands because there's been a shooting that has killed their classmates in this country. And here we are again, roughly, I think 5 or 6 weeks after the most recent school shooting in this country that was just last month. When you are listening to and hearing from our teams on the ground and families who are in Nashville, there is a sense of shock and disbelief, but also of, I think, anger. Fair?
Yeah, fair. Absolutely. I mean, this is part of this tapestry of school shootings that are interconnected across this country, really since the time I was a little boy and remember watching Columbine unfold on the Today Show, thinking, how could this happen? Could this happen to me? Growing up with this reality, and then to be a part of that, though, to be a parent in one of these schools or to have a child in a school and not know what the fate of your child is as you're watching this unfold on TV, hearing it on the news, seeing it play out when you go to pick up your child. Those children are being reunited with their parents still as we speak. As far as we understand, there was busloads of kids being taken away from the scene. Heartfelt, tearful reunions, thankful, relief, of course, part of that equation. But the other part, as you mentioned, is anger. I imagine people are very upset. Remember Uvalde. There was all these questions about how could a person get a gun like this? How could this person with this gun get into a school? Similar questions will be asked about how a 28-year-old woman could obtain 2 long guns, 2 assault-style weapons, carry those weapons into a side door that the chief of police said in an earlier press conference was closed and locked, make her way up to the 1st and 2nd floor, take aim, and kill as many people as she wanted to. That will be part of this investigation as well, and it will be part of the anger of parents and people in these communities for as long as it exists. Hallie.
Steve Patterson, thank you. Ken, let me go to you because we talked about how this attack is so against the typical profile, horrific as it is that there even is a typical profile of a school shooter with a 28-year-old woman who is allegedly behind this here. Talk about how rare that is. I think it's just about 5% of mass shootings in this country carried out by women, and what kind of challenges this creates for the feds as they're trying to figure out what happened here on the scene.
And even that 5% statistic, Hallie, is a bit misleading because it includes all kinds of shootings. When you look at these active shooter type situations, the numbers are even lower. NBC News identified really only 7 going back to 1979 where women were active shooters. And when you're talking about women who have been armed with assault-style rifles, I'm not even sure that's happened before. If it has, it's been 1 or 2 times. It's really incredibly disturbing as I talk to law enforcement officials about this because, in particular, the way this transpired with potentially a former student armed with 2 assault rifles and a handgun, going there clearly with the intent to kill children, that's the kind of behavior that we've seen mainly from males, people with mentally disturbed people with violent tendencies. To see it in a female is just raising questions about a contagion that we are seeing in our society and how far it's spreading. In terms of the investigation, it's going to be the same kind of thing they would do with any suspect, which is they are going through social media. We're hearing from our affiliate right now who is at the home of Audrey Hale, and it is swarming with law enforcement officers, so they've served a search warrant on that place. They're going through all her digital devices, trying to discern what the potential motive was. And then they're also going to look at what happened here. This response, if there's anything at all positive about this, is that the response by the authorities was incredibly fast, and it's pretty clear that the students and the teachers at the school acted in the best way that they could and started evacuating kids immediately. But even so, 6 people are dead. So that tells you that even when everything goes right, it's still a horrific tragedy when you have a shooter armed with assault weapons.
This is something that the president himself alluded to, Ken, when we heard from him not too long ago this afternoon, trying to push for change. I want to play for you what President Biden had to say.
It's just, it's sick. You know, we're still gathering the facts of what happened and why. So I call on Congress again to pass my assault weapons ban. It's about time that we began to make some more progress.
This is not the first time that the president has called for that kind of ban. The reality on Capitol Hill is that there is simply not political appetite to try to get this done, at least not at this point. Ken, do you see that changing at all?
No, I don't. But even if it somehow did change, there are 25 million AK and AR style assault rifles in circulation right now. And so unless the United States is going to embark on some kind of buyback program the way, for example, Australia did, and nobody thinks that's politically realistic in this country, where there is a love of these kinds of weapons in certain parts of the country. So there's your problem. I mean, there's so many weapons in circulation. It's become such a popular, iconic weapon in certain circles. I can't even believe I'm saying those words, right? But that's the reality that we're living in. And when I talk to law enforcement officials who specialize and experts who examine these kinds of mass shootings, they almost throw up their hands now at the gun situation. Their view is anybody who really wants a gun can get a gun. So where we have to focus now is on these signs and signals that almost all these shooters exhibit beforehand, and the people they talk to who know things, who for whatever reason don't report it. Behavioral interventions before it gets to this point, Hallie.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.